leader, having influence is how others also perceive you. I mean, yes, you can fake it, well, but that's what they will notice. Or you
Well,
can be authentic.
I got to say, I think leading with influence, you can't fake.
No,
Because if
you're
you're going
right.
to have influence, it's something that's given to you. Respect is earned, not not given. That you have to actually go out there and do it. And then when you have influence, you have to be responsible for it because it's based on trust. And it's that old story. It can take you 20 years to build up and 10 seconds to blow
Yeah,
away. So
yeah,
you've got to
yeah,
be very, very, very careful and thoughtful about it. And that's the other nice thing about the being profile. It helps build that space and that confidence that enables you just to stop, think about it, and then respond rather than react.
yeah.
So it gives you that presence, if you want. You can learn to develop that presence. And this is interesting because we'd set out the topic of web of perceptions, and we've talked about how our elderly mothers are perceived because
Yeah.
of the situations that they find themselves in through no fault of their own. But it is an issue, particularly with women as they grow older. This issue of being invisible.
Mm.
Women become invisible. So, and to a little extent, I'm also experiencing it as I get older because
Mm.
I'm now going, well, hang on, you're not the alpha male in the room anymore. You're kind of the old guy.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I get
Getting
that,
there,
and
getting there. I'm not saying I'm
yeah,
there yet. I'm not there. But when you're into the knee replacement stage, you do realize that this is not
yeah,
your
yeah.
prime, you know.
And
And
the thing is, oh, yeah, the thing is also, I get that, and I'm also aware about this, perception of being invisible also for women, and it's also obviously, I'm also perceived very different from when I was a teenager, when I was 20, when I was 30, and I stopped there. And then I realized, um, I'm now a different woman. I have different qualities, and I have wisdom, and maturity, and this is what I want to embody and step into. Um, and things, the way people look at you is different, but it doesn't mean that you're not seen. It is also a perception. It depends what you want to show. And yeah, yeah,
so you're saying to me that that perception that people might have of an individual, you or me, that's partly our responsibility, at least.
yeah,
That
yeah,
we have to take responsibility for the perception that we're causing, which again comes back to why the being profile is such an important tool, so as that we understand that who we're showing up as, which is
yeah.
obviously causing a perception. Yes, you've got to get through that other person's filters as well. I mean, that's the other thing that's a cold hard reality is we all see the world through filters, and those filters come from the past, not from the future. And this is where we need to have different or quite deliberately change our perception
Yeah.
and
And
say, hey, is this really true about this person, or is this situation, or is this just me bouncing off what's happened in the past?
that's right. And it's also this perception, coming from the past. Um, you can look at it, and if it's not an effective or realistic perception, then you can also change it. But we also always have a lens. We cannot operate without a lens. It's impossible for the brain to not have a lens, because otherwise we would have so much information coming to us that we cannot process. So we have a certain point of view, of certain perception, to be actually able to analyze certain information and then respond in a certain manner. So that's also important to understand that we have that all the time.
Yes. And it's like being at the opticians and getting new glasses tried out, right? You can change your lenses. You're not stuck with the same lenses. We just think we're stuck. We think we're fixed in as a product of our of who we were, who we are. No, that's an illusion. That's an illusion. You have the power to deliberately view something differently, and that can change the past. It's really interesting. You can look at something in a different and from a different perspective, or think about it that's happened. You can't change the actual physical actions, but you can change the information that you're taking away from that and how that's going to activate in your life in the future. What you're making it mean.
This is a really, really important point you've brought up. This is often the crux of everything. And at some point, I also came, obviously, I understand that we look into the past from different perspectives, depending on our age and what else we have experienced in life. So that changes, and it actually changes the past. And the other thing that I also realized in this context is our brains are fallible. We always think, oh, I remember the past, even let's say a birthday party, and I might remember, oh, I was wearing a yellow dress. And my mother would say, no, you weren't wearing a yellow dress. It was a blue dress. And just from that perspective, to look at it, well, one of us has a wrong memory, an extra wrong memory. And when I realized this, I might do I actually remember which color dress I actually wore, just as an example. And so, well, after some time, it might morph from yellow to green. And the thing is also, and this is scientifically also proven, the more often we look at what's happened in the past, it's like opening a file cabinet, and we pull out a folder, we look into it. Oh, this is what happened. We put it back into the file cabinet, but we always put it back with some sort of alteration, which we are not aware of. And when I realized that, well, the brain is fallible, then I can actually change the past. Who cares? It's gone.
So what you're saying is that when you open that file again, you go back into the file a second time and you look at it, because you've altered it, you're reading it incorrectly. It's not an accurate record, right? Because you've altered it. And then when you put it back, you've altered it again. So the more
that's
time
right. Yeah.
And I remember reading something about this in terms of interrogation of humans, is that if the story remains rock solid the same, they know you're lying. Because you would always, as a human, change it. There'd be small changes in it. And I think this is interesting because just recently here in Australia, of course, we had the Brittany Higgins defamation trial, and the judge came in and said that he considered Brittany Higgins and what was the word she used? An unreliable witness, but understandable under the circumstances, and given the trauma around the situation, he made his judgments from a trauma-informed position of how she, as a human being, might be dealing with the memories of what allegedly happened, or as the judge says, in the balance of probabilities, did happen. And I think this is instructive to us as human beings, of just how flexible our brains are, and this issue of how trauma infects our perspective. And it doesn't have to be heavy trauma. It can just be having lost your mum in the shopping centre when you're 5 years old.
I mean, if you're when you're 5 years old, that's a huge trauma. That's a huge. I had a client who was lost in a holiday in a big city in Europe, and he got lost. I mean, that was a huge trauma, and he was little. He was probably about 5 or 6, And then the police found him and all the rest of it. That's sort of, wow. Yeah.
But it's also, you know, people, what will further traumatize people is also relative. You know, if you grow up in the rough suburbs, I mean, I lived in Chicago for a bit, and you go on the south side of Chicago, it's burned earth. It's a very, very difficult environment, urban environment. It looks like it's constantly at war, because it probably is.
Yeah,
and you grow up there, your perception of trauma is going to be rather different from growing up in the leafy suburbs of Brisbane, where I live. You know, this is you've got far more resilience, because you just had to have resilience. And
that is true. I mean, and also sometimes we judge people as in, oh, this person had a really rough upbringing, as you've just described, you know, within the southern parts of Chicago, really tough and rough. And then someone in the, you know, nice leafy suburbs in Brisbane has this great life. But the thing is, an incident that would have traumatized the person in the nice leafy suburbs of Brisbane can have the same impact on the person compared to the person who is growing up in a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
So sometimes we judge people like this. Oh, you've had such a nice upbringing, everything was there, and you know, you can't possibly have that type of a trauma, and it's possible.
You make a great point there, Jack. We don't know.
We don't know exactly.
We don't know. We do find out sometimes a little bit when we're going through the being profile as to why people are where they're at, because they tell us. And that's instructive for them in terms of understanding that that's happened. I was watching the news this morning, and there was a gentleman who won the Victoria Cross in Vietnam, who says there's nobody who had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. There's nobody who's had it. You have it, or you're dead, or you haven't got it. You have it, or you haven't got it. But if you've suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, it never goes away. And I think there's a great point of it. You might be able to mitigate that, control it, understand it, know it's there. But I think this is all that, you know, we can't change anything other than our perception of what's happened in the past. But we can change our perception, which gives us the ability to live and learn and know, hey, I'm not going to, that loud noise is not a gun, it's a backfire. You know, it's not likely in the balance of probabilities that I'm repeating this previous experience. You can know that intellectually, but your body is, what do they say, keeps the score.
Exactly. There's a book, isn't it? Like the body keeps the score. Yes, absolutely. And you also, I mean, it's part of our life that we are formed through our experiences to some degree, and we can, you know, as we said, we can change that. But you know, would you want to wipe out your memory? It's almost like it's wiping out a part of your identity. And as long as you understand this part, you're not attached to it, you know, you can very well use it also to your advantage. And it's part of you. You know, I've had one client who was a veteran from Afghanistan, and he definitely had PTSD. I mean, I wasn't coaching him on that. That was a different types of session. And the thing is, he said whatever he's seen there, as horrific it was, and caused him all sorts of issues and addictions and all sorts of stuff, he wouldn't want to wipe it out. It's almost like it's like he virtually said, I can't wipe it out. I don't want to wipe it out. I don't have who would I be? You know, then this part of me that was there in Afghanistan didn't exist, you know. So he's learned to live with it. And
so you almost want to honor that person You want to honor that person and what they went through, and wiping them out is not honoring them. But I think
No.
this is the basis of where we can use perception to build our wisdom, because that's a wise statement from a man who has a better idea of what's going on in his life. I presumed it was a man. I should have said a person.
It was,
A
yeah.
person
Yeah. Yeah.
that has learned to live with their
Mm.
trauma, to understand it, learn to
Yeah.
understand that
Yeah.
our brain is not necessarily telling us the truth. It's not necessarily
That's
feeding us the information that is what is real. And in fact, we can have an argument, and there's pretty good evidence now that nobody really knows the absolute truth. And I love pointing at colors. So I notice you're wearing a red lipstick today, and I have a perception of what red lipstick is, and you'll never know what that is in my head. And
yeah,
I'll never
that's
know what
right.
your idea of red is.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so how do we know what red is? Well, that's a second layer reality, as we
Yeah.
agreed. It's something we agree on. But the actual color, I mean, your red might be my blue. I don't know.
That's right. Because this is more orangey red for me. It's not.
I warned you, I'm colorblind and those things. But the whole thing is it pays to question your perception. It pays because this web of perception we talk about, it's layer upon layer upon layer, and it's a really good idea to check that out, to step aside and go, is this really true? Like when I was
Mm.
buying that domain before, I felt picked on. I felt that they had loaded up that invoice at the last minute because I'm not as maybe as tech savvy as other people. And lo and behold, I've checked out and there's an extra $36 on the bill. And my emotional response was, you
Yeah.
you
It is.
you
It
you
is.
just stole off me, right?
It's
Whereas it's not
sneaky.
the
That's my
case.
perception.
That's just me being tired and sore and grumpy old bugger. No, settle down. That's not what they're about. I just got to give them a phone call. They'll credit me the money back. It's just the way of the world. Don't make more of it. But
And
you,
for someone else, that would have been a great idea. The person would have thought, "Oh yeah, I like that. That's great that they put this
yeah,
in my
yeah, the great
card
that
and
they put that in.
reminded."
Yeah, exactly.
And and yeah, and
So
that
that's
well, that's
why question it and go, okay. And I'd like to bring something else in here because I think that, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but we'll have a crack at it. I think if you compare your perception of the situation as to how that affects your peace of mind, that's a pretty good place to judge it from. So that
mm,
didn't help my peace of mind getting upset about that. So better to step back and go, look,
and look at it. Yeah.
they're trying to do their business. That's what they're trying to do. They're not trying to rip you off because, in fact, they've generated more cost for them because they'll actually cost them to credit that money back. So why would they do that? It's not logical.
Mm,
It's not
mm,
logical.
mm.
So, but when I do that, I physically feel a more peaceful person inside. But you know my archetypes. I got warriors and pirates and
And
I have got
yeah.
statesmen in there, but it's saboteurs and victims. She's all on in there, that's for sure. So
But that's, all archetypes are good archetypes. So, they're all awesome.
I jest with you. I jest.
It is, yeah, those
But
archetypes.
this is you get this perception thing is just because you think it's so, just because you've experienced it so, just because your brain is telling you it's so, just because your results are showing you it's so, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
No. And what also just occurred to me, I mean, I love this conversation, but what just occurred to me, the brain is also, apart from being fallible, it's super smart. And some perceptions, they sound very positive, and people think, yeah, well, why should that not be correct? Because it's like this nice positive perception. I can give you an example. Um, like a perception, some people have a perception that, oh, people always do the best they can. And while that may be true in some situations, it is not the ultimate truth. People don't always do the best they can. And there are very many different views on it. And, a good, but it's a nice perception to have, oh, people always do the best they can. So what does that mean for me? Because a perception is triggering for me a certain behavior or a certain way to respond, which means I don't know, I have to make it up. I'm the good Samaritan. I can step in and help them because they're doing the best they can and that's all they can do. But people are extremely powerful people. It also, that perception can take away from the other person's empowerment because we have choices all the time. I can do the best I can, or I can let someone else do it and pretend I'm doing the best I can. And that's also very powerful because I not influence, manipulate another person to step in to do something for me because I'm doing the best I can. That's all I can do.
So
I'm a little bit facetious, but yeah.
So, and this is interesting because tomorrow morning I'm giving a presentation. I'm asking this question: who's the most difficult person you've ever had to lead?
Oh, I have an answer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the one. Because if anybody says anything other than themselves, they kill themselves. And the next question is, so why is that?
Oh, that is actually a really good question because I have to think about it. Yeah,
Well, I
that
can
is
tell you why
really,
I think it is. It's because we
yeah.
believe our own stories. We justify ourselves.
Oh,
I'm doing the best
wow.
I can. Oh,
Oh
really?
God, that is
Mirror.
awesome. High five. That is awesome. Oh God, anyone who has this perception or belief, people do the best they can. We're not making fun of you, but maybe you get the picture. This is not the ultimate truth.
Yeah, and
Maybe I'm
to
doing
think,
best.
change your perspective. You
And
know,
yeah, we,
that's
we,
what
we
people
do
in
believe
coaches.
our own stories. We love our own stories. It's
Hmm,
okay, I can't do this because I was never good at it.
hmm.
Because I had a certain experience or, I just can't do it. Why
Yeah,
not?
and it so can be overcome. When I was 55 years old, I couldn't swim. I
Oh,
could
you
swim a
couldn't.
little bit. I couldn't swim. All
Wow.
right. Okay. But my knees were not doing too well, so walking wasn't happening, so swimming pool had to happen. All right. I used to tell myself for all of my life, look, I didn't like swimming because the swimming instructor pushed my head under the water, and it's true, it happened. And I made myself a victim there and after and took away swimming as an exercise for myself for 40 years or 50 years because I was about 5 or 6 at the time when this happened. But this is the trauma
Mhm.
type thing, yeah? Okay, read this, believes the
Yeah.
story. But within it took me 2.5, 3 years. I was swimming 1,500 meters freestyle. Now I wasn't doing it really fast, but it was just a matter of saying, yes, I can, doing the work, getting help from tips from people down the pool on breathing and bits and pieces. But I was able to change that whole perception from I can't swim to, yeah, well, within 1,500 meters, I'll be good. I could probably swim further than I can walk now.
And I mean, that's such a brilliant example. Also thinking, one step at a time. Often we think,
Mm,
okay, I can't swim, I can't do this, and I want to swim. That's a huge gap. If you would have thought or started with, I want to swim 1,500 kilometers, I was going to say
yeah,
meters, let's keep it,
yeah, yeah.
uh, that would have been maybe too much of a gap, but one step at a time.
Well,
And
what it was breaststroke as far as I could down the 50-meter pool, and then walk the rest of the way until I could do breaststroke the whole length, and then breaststroke for 200 meters. Then started once I got breaststroke for a kilometer, I thought, well, now I need to do freestyle. So I needed to learn. So it was one length breaststroke. I go far as I could freestyle, and then
yeah,
back to breaststrokes.
yeah,
It was just like that. And then I said, oh, now I need to learn to turn at the end of the
yeah,
pool. And I probably still look like a clumsy elephant doing it, but that's not the point. The point is
the
that
point
I
is the
actually got to be able to swim 1,500 meters, and it
oh,
was part of turning my health around and also mental health around, because I realized that it was down to me. If I didn't believe in the stories that I was telling myself, anything was now all of a sudden possible.
that is, I mean, so amazing. This is, changing your perception about something, and something that was with you for your whole life based on a traumatic experience.
Hmm.
And then like 50 years later, you're actually doing it. That's incredible. Um, because that's based on changing a perception. So
Hmm.
you've changed, your exercise regime
Eh,
around that, had the impact that your health is better. You're not,
Right.
using your knees too much. It's, all of this
Yeah, so
in itself.
living a better quality of life because of that, and this is all based on the understanding to not be mind identified. Just what
Mm.
your mind's rabbiting on about, because you've always got these voices in there. The two favorite channels are, who do you think you are, and you're not good enough. And half the time it's not your voice. It's a teacher, or it's something, or somewhere something's gone wrong. And we think the negative, we bring the negative up. Something I think is about, we take 80% of negative information and keep it, and only 20% of positives. I
Oh,
might be wrong on
that's
that. Yeah, we're very negative nowadays as far as this is concerned. So once I understood that, no, I can change that perception with persistence, because it didn't come without the work. You can't just
yes.
magically wave the
Yeah,
wand
yeah.
and go, okay, now, and also you can't say, well, now I know I can do it. All right, I've done it. No, no, you actually have to go and do the work, because you have no authenticity in it unless you do the work, unless you
Yeah.
actually do the change, do the study, do whatever it is that you need to do to make the change and to be the difference in your own life.
This is, I mean, it does remind me of a more work-related example also, which I like to share mostly for our listeners also. This was somewhere more in the sort of earlier days of my career, and I started a new job as a project manager. And I was told in the first week that a particular departmental manager of a department, he is a bully. And now I had no history with this person. So I didn't have that story about him. So it is easier, and it was fresh. And I thought, okay, I'll meet him. I went to all managers of the departments and sat down with them, introduced myself, and this is what I'm doing, and how can I help you. And I did help them also, just on a side note. So I didn't just say it. So I came to his office, and I was squeaky clean. I was just got this impression that people say he's a bully. So after 1 hour of chatting with him, at the end of the conversation, he was showing me his photos of his grandchildren. That was the end of the conversation, and he was very happy. And I thought, now I'm not saying that he may not have had bullying behavior at times, or he was a little bit more like the elephant in the china type of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
He, and when I spoke to him, because I didn't have that perception, and I wanted to shape my perception and see who is this person, and is he really a bully? I also wanted to make sure, should he be a bully? Now that's a big thing to say. I'm not with someone to be bullied with, because I was bullied when I was little, have a little chip on my shoulder. I'm not being bullied anymore unless, I'm in a very, sort of situation where I can't do anything else.
Mm.
And I found out he was a lovely man. His team in his department really liked him. He was awesome. Now, I'm not saying sometimes he might have overstepped or he might have said something and bullied someone, or that his demeanor was like this. And I'm not saying he shouldn't polish it a little bit. I'm not, letting him completely off the hook. But he wasn't meaning that. As I was with this company for quite some years, and I got to know him a little bit better. He also never bullied me, but I don't want to make fun of it. And I can imagine that some people would have felt, oh, that's a little bit too much. So I'm just saying, it can be a perception, and it could have been a bully, but then I would have questioned, why is that person still with this company?
That's a great example, and it also is a great reason why we shouldn't sit with this concept that initial perceptions, especially if they are formed by other information other than personal information, should be set aside. And sometimes even our own experiences where we've experienced a negative interaction with a human that's formed our position with regard to that human, because there could have been a lot of other stuff going on at that particular point in time. So kindness and forgiveness is really important. That's not to say, and I love always pointing this out with forgiveness, that's not to say you don't take the lessons and learn the lessons. It is to say that you don't hold grudges. You put it down and you move on. And you try and find a new way of building a bridge. And this goes to the overall theme of emotional resilience. If you can find it in yourself to forgive, or to look at another employee or with a clean slate, another human with a clean slate, and start the right way to start with, or restart in the event that things have gone wrong. Now, this is leadership, and that's influencing. That's influencing. And it doesn't matter whether you're the boss or whether you're operating the reception desk. I always think reception desks are really important. I like having my office manager running the reception, because they know what's going in the whole place.
They know.
And I like them being the manager. They can do the reception desk. It's a power place, but I just simply say it because it's not necessarily a disempowered place. But if you're the newest person in the company or the longest serving, you can choose how you're going to interrelate, and you start influencing people, and you start being able to make a difference to your own life because your ability of others. And I suppose this is why people would want to do the being profile, because you can get updates. You can find out how you're coming across now, and then you can do it again in 6 months' time if you want to see. But you better have done some work between times, otherwise you'll just get a repeat photo.
Yeah, that's right. You do want to work on it and change that perception and your level of influence. And it also always comes back to, did you have that conversation? Have you actually spoken to the person? Have you sat down with them? And often we don't do.
Have you listened to them?
Oh, listen to them. Yeah, that's a good one. Listening, to actually listen what's going on in the other person's life. And sometimes there's a lot of very high expectations on leaders that they are perfect and always get it right and have open door policy and treat you well and have, the career ready for you. But they're also people, and they might have come to work and just had an argument at home and, may not have the best day. Can you forgive that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And step up and do the best you can to fill that hole.
Yeah. and see what's going on in their life, and they will be forever grateful with you for that. They will be forever grateful that you actually took some time and listened to, oh, someone is listening to me. CEOs of companies, they often have a very sort of lonely path because
Yeah.
they're the one at the top, and they need to keep it all together. And who is ever listening to them, to their story,
Well,
their
caring is
challenges?
vastly underrated as a way of caring and attracting for staff. Caring about staff, caring about up, sideways, being caring. Doesn't mean you have to nursemaid everybody, but if you create a culture of caring in the company, then you're going to get a far higher level of engagement, and you're going to get correspondingly higher productivity, roughly 3 times what you'd otherwise achieve. So it's a good idea to care.
Yeah, good idea to care. I agree.
I might write that down. It's a bit of a neat little phrase.
It also makes you feel better. You feel better if you actually care versus, I don't care. Yeah.
So are we done on this one? I reckon we're done on this one. What do you reckon?
I think we are. I think we are done on this one. So thanks for listening in again. I hope you got a lot out of it. Let us know in the comment section if there's any interesting topic you'd like us to discuss. We're happy to do so.